200 degrees, that is not the air temperature. I want to be clear about that from the very start, because the air was the number they were watching, and the air was not the number that killed them. The air that day topped out around 125, which is a figure most people cannot imagine and cannot survive for long, and it was not the dangerous one. The dangerous one was the ground. The white salt of Badwater Basin in the full sun of a July afternoon can climb to 200 degrees, hot enough to cook an egg, hot enough to blister skin through a thin sole, and they walked out onto it in flip-flops, with a cooler full of cocktails and not one bottle of water, because somebody had looked at all that white and said the sentence I have not been able to forget. It is just a big beach. Welcome back to Doomed Departures. What you are about to hear is a composite story. It is built from real temperatures, real rescues, and the real and specific way the hottest place on Earth kills the people who mistake it for somewhere friendlier. But the young couple at the center of it are an invention. Assembled from every summer, I have watched people treat this basin like a photo backdrop instead of the furnace it is. No real person is named here. They are a dramatization. The heat is not. Every number I give you in this story is real, and the worst of those numbers is the one almost nobody thinks to check, which is the one under their feet. Badwater Basin is the lowest point in North America, 282 feet below sea level, a vast white plain of salt that stretches flat and blinding to the mountains on every side. And I understand the mistake, I truly do, because from the parking lot, it does look like something gentle. It looks like a beach. White reads as cool to us. Snow is white. The brain sees white and open and flat and files the whole thing under harmless, under vacation, under wade out and take a picture. But there is no water in Badwater. The name is a joke a surveyor made a long time ago about a pool too salty for his mule to drink. There is only salt and sky and a sun with nothing at all between it and you, and a ground that spends the whole day storing heat and handing it back. It is the most beautiful trap I have ever guarded. People forget where they are, and I understand why. They drive in with the windows up and the air conditioning roaring, and the car lies to them the whole way, and then they open the door and the heat does not feel like heat at first. It feels like an oven you have opened, like a hairdryer held to the face, like a thing that cannot possibly keep this up, because nothing they have ever stood in has. But it can, and it does, all day, every day, all summer, in the place that has recorded the hottest air temperature ever reliably measured on Earth. Those of us who work here have a grim name for July and August. We call it the stupid season, and we do not mean it as an insult to anyone. We mean it as a description of what heat like this does to a human mind, which is to make it stupid, slowly, from the inside so gently that the person never once feels themselves losing the argument. They pulled in around midday, which is already the wrong answer, in a rental car with the air conditioning going, and they climbed out dressed for a beach because in their minds that is exactly where they were. She was in a purple sundress. He was in teal, board shorts, and a loose shirt, both of them in flip-flops. Both of them young and fit and clearly used to their bodies doing whatever they asked of them. They had a cooler. I watched them lift it out of the trunk, and I already knew, the way I always know, that if I could open that cooler, it would be full of exactly the wrong things. Drinks for a celebration, canned seltzers, something bright for the photos, ice that was already a countdown, and no water or nowhere near enough, because you do not pack water for a beach. The beach has lifeguards. The beach has a snack bar. The beach lets you leave whenever you want. They had packed with total confidence for a place that did not exist. I have thought a lot about the state of mind that lets a person do this because it is not stupidity, not exactly, and calling it that lets the rest of us off the hook too easily. It is vacation. It is the softening that happens to a brain when it decides it is off the clock, when the whole point of the trip is to relax and set down the vigilance ordinary life demands. And laid over the top of that, in their case, was the other thing, the audience, the sense that this was not just a day, but content, that the day existed in order to be captured and shared and admired. A person filming their own vacation is a person half living it, watching themselves from the outside, editing in real time, and that person is not checking the ground temperature. That person is checking the light. I keep a kind of ledger in my head on days like that, 2 numbers running side by side, and I want you to keep it too as this goes, because it is the whole story. The air, when they stepped out of the car, was 118. The ground where they were standing, the pavement, was already past 140, and out on the salt, where they were headed in the open sun, the number was climbing toward the worst of it. 2 numbers, the one on the weather app and the one that actually decides who walks back to the car. They only ever looked at one of them. I went over to them because that is the job, and because a purple dress and flip-flops walking toward the salt at noon in July is not a thing you let go by. I gave them the talk. I told them the air was dangerous and the ground was worse. I told them flip-flops on that salt would hurt them in a way they were not expecting. I told them a cooler of cocktails was not water, and that alcohol out here works against a person, speeds the whole thing up. I told them to stay near the boardwalk, take their picture, and get back in the car. And the young man lifted his phone, and he pointed it at me, and he grinned, and he narrated me to his audience like I was part of the entertainment. "Check out this guy," he said, "telling us it is dangerous. It is just a big beach. Relax." And she laughed off camera, that bright, easy laugh of a person who has never once been somewhere that did not let them leave. They posted it before they even walked out onto the salt. That clip, the one where they laughed at the man trying to save them, is the last thing either of them ever posted. I have given that talk 1,000 times, in one form or another, and I have learned to hear how it lands by the reply it gets. Most people thank me and mean it and adjust. Some thank me and do not mean it and go anyway, but carefully, chastened, close to the boardwalk. And then there is the rare kind, the kind that does not just ignore the warning, but turns it into a bit, a prop, a thing to perform against, because to them the danger is not real. It is a character in the story of their day, and I am the actor who showed up to play it. Those are the ones I lose. Not because they are worse people, because contempt is a kind of armor, an armor that thick keeps out the one thing that could have saved them, which was a stranger telling them the truth. I watched them walk toward the salt, and I did the thing I always do, which is note the time and hope, the way you hope, uselessly, that this will be one of the ones who come back. Let me tell you what the salt actually does, because it is the part the beach in their heads did not have. White does not mean cool. White salt under a July sun absorbs heat all day long and holds it and radiates it back up so that the air near the ground is hotter than the air up at your head, and the surface itself climbs toward 200 degrees. A flip-flop is a 1/4 inch of foam between a person and that. It is not protection. It is a delay. And the body out there is fighting a war it cannot win, because the only tool it has against heat is sweat, and sweat needs water. And water was the one thing they had decided a beach does not require. Every minute on that salt, they were spending water they were not replacing, in a place cooking them from below and roasting them from above, with a drink in their hands that was quietly making all of it faster. Here is the sequence a body runs in that heat, and it runs it in order whether you consent or not. First, it sweats hard, dumping the water you brought straight into air so dry it vanishes before you ever feel wet, which is exactly why the desert is so good at hiding how much it is taking from you. Then, when the water runs low, the sweat thins and the cooling fails. And the core temperature your body fights so hard to hold begins to climb. And once it climbs past a certain point, the brain itself starts to cook, and thinking goes, and with thinking goes, every good decision that might still have saved you. This is the part no toughness reaches. You cannot push through your own core temperature. There is no version of fit or brave or determined that lets a person outmuscle the simple physics of a body storing more heat than it can shed. And then they did the thing the photo demanded. You cannot get the shot in flip-flops. The flip-flops are in the frame, and the frame is supposed to be clean, white salt, and bare feet and freedom. So they took them off. Both of them barefoot on salt that was pushing toward 200 degrees for the picture, hopping and laughing at first, because the mind reads it as funny before it reads it as damage. Skin does not have to be in a fire to burn. Contact with a 200-degree surface does it in seconds, and they were on it longer than seconds for angles, for retakes, for the version where they both looked happy at the same time. By the time they put the flip-flops back on, something had already been done to their feet that was going to make the walk back the hardest walk of their lives, and they did not yet know it because the salt had numbed what it had not yet finished burning. The ledger did not pause for the photo. While they hopped and laughed and reset the shot, the air held near 120 and the salt sat at close to 200, and the burns went in and the water went out, and the two numbers they were not watching did the quiet arithmetic that the third number, the one they were watching, would never show them. Let me ask you something, and I ask it every single time I tell this one. What is the most dangerous place you have ever walked into while calling it something safe? A road you called a shortcut, a person you called harmless, a situation you called fine. Tell me in the comments, because the couple in purple and teal did not die of heat, not really. They died of a category error. They died because they gave the deadliest place in this country a friendly name, and then they packed for the name instead of the place. They walked out farther than they should have, the way people do when the ground is flat and the light is good and every step looks the same as the last. The salt does that. It has no landmarks, no halfway point, no honest sense of distance. So a person keeps going, chasing a cleaner background, and never feels the return trip getting longer behind them. And the salt lies about distance in a specific way that has killed people smarter than them. The heat rising off it bends the light so the mountains shimmer and the horizon lifts. And the car, when they finally turned to look for it, was a small dark smudge that seemed both closer and farther than it was, floating on a lake of heat that is not water and has drowned people anyway. They had walked out feeling strong in the cool the car had loaned them, and that loan had come due without their noticing, the way it always does, all at once, in the middle, at the farthest possible point from help. The cooler was back at the boardwalk. It did not matter. It was cocktails and melting ice, and even if it had been full of water, it was a quarter-mile away across 200-degree ground, on feet that were already burned. The ledger, by now, was merciless. The air was 122. The salt was near its peak, and two young people were standing in the middle of it with nothing, having brought a party to a place that does not throw them. Heat does not take you the way people imagine. There is no single dramatic moment. It is a slide, and the cruelest part of the slide is that it steals the judgment you would need to save yourself right at the moment you need it most. The first thing to go is not the body, it is the plan. They got confused before they got weak. They argued about which way the car was on a flat white plain where every direction looks identical. One of them wanted to rest. Out there, resting means sitting down, and sitting down means putting more of your body against 200-degree salt. And I will not walk you through the rest of it, because they were people and not a lesson, and because the details are not the thing you need. The heat they had laughed at from an air-conditioned car 1 hour earlier finished what the first barefoot photo had started. The clip was still up while it was happening. That is the part I cannot get past. Somewhere that afternoon, their video was doing numbers. Their friends were laughing at the funny park ranger. The comments were filling with beach emojis and have fun. While the two of them were out on the salt, the video had been filmed beside, learning in the worst possible way that I had not been the entertainment. I had been the warning. The internet did not know yet. The internet found out the way it always does later all at once, when the laughing clip in the news became the same story. There is a particular cruelty in dying with your last words still performing for a crowd. The clip did what clips do. It traveled, and for a while, a strange and terrible while, the version of them that was laughing and alive and certain kept playing on thousands of screens, kept being funny, kept being right, long after the two of them had stopped being any of those things. People who never met them argued in the comments about whether it was staged, whether the ranger was real, whether anyone could truly need to be told. And the answer to that last one, the one nobody wants, is yes. Anyone can. Certainty is not intelligence. Some of the surest people I have ever met walked out onto that salt, and the salt did not grade a single one of them on how sure they were. We found them out on the flat. I am not going to tell you the condition, because it is theirs and not yours, and because a number on a report is not the thing that changes anyone's mind. We reached them as fast as anyone could have, and it was nowhere near fast enough, because Badwater does not give you the hours a rescue needs. It gives you minutes, and it spends them while you are still smiling for a phone. The cooler was right where they had left it. The drinks inside had gone warm. That was the only thing out there that afternoon the heat treated gently. If the two numbers in this story, the one they watched and the one that killed them, have lodged somewhere in you, then do the small thing that carries them to the next person about to call a furnace a beach. Like this video, so it reaches someone in the parking lot before they walk out instead of after. Subscribe so you are here for the next one. Not for me, and not for a number on a screen. Do it so that one more couple somewhere checks the ground and not just the air, and packs water instead of a party. Here is the whole of it, and I have thought about how to say it for a long time. The desert hears what you call it, not literally. The salt does not have ears. But what you call a place decides how you prepare for it. And how you prepare for it decides whether you walk back to your car. Call Badwater a beach and you bring flip-flops and cocktails and a camera. Call it what it truly is, the lowest, hottest, most water-starved ground in North America. And you bring water and closed shoes and a plan and a healthy fear, and the fear is the thing that keeps you alive. The couple did not lack courage. They had too much of it aimed at the wrong target. What they lacked was the small, unglamorous humility to call the place by its real name. And the real name, out here, is the whole difference between a photo and a funeral. 200 degrees. That was the ground. 125 was the air. And the only number that ever appeared in their video was neither of those. It was the view count climbing, while the two numbers that actually mattered climbed faster underneath them. "It is just a big beach," he said to a camera, to an audience, to a man in a flat hat who was telling him the truth. The desert heard him. It does not argue. It does not post a reply. It simply gives every person exactly the experience they prepared for, and they had prepared with total confidence and matching outfits for a beach that was never there. Next time, we leave the dry heat behind for a different kind of trap, the kind with water in it, the kind that looks like relief and is the opposite, where the danger is not that there is nothing to drink, but that there is far too much of it, all at once, coming fast. Until then, when you stand at the edge of somewhere wild and beautiful and a small voice wants to call it something tame, do not. Call it by its real name. The name you give a place is the first piece of gear you pack, and it is the one that quietly decides all the others. This has been Doomed Departures. Stay safe, and we will see you on the next one.